you want to hire someone, transfer them, you'll need a position for that. Think of a position as a role to be filled, separate from the person who fills it. Employees with multiple jobs would have multiple positions. In UCPath, a position moves through a life cycle, shifting between vacant and filled states as employees come and go. A position is a unique role within an organization, defined by specific duties, responsibilities, and attributes. It's associated with a job code, department, and reporting structure. And because positions exist independently of employees, they can be vacant or filled. When an employee leaves a position, the position remains. It can be inactivated or updated and reused, depending on organizational needs. Positions are like a chair in an office or a box on an org chart. They exist whether or not someone is sitting in them. Position management ensures positions are accurately maintained throughout their life cycle, whether they are vacant or filled. The position life cycle represents the journey of a position in UCPath, starting with vacant position management. This includes creating, updating, reusing, or inactivating positions. Hiring into a position. Once the position is created or updated, an employee can be hired into it. Filled position management. Once the employee fills the position, there may be updates to their position and job data, including promotions and reclassifications. Separating from a position. Eventually, the employee may transfer, terminate, or retire, which may make the position vacant again, ready to be updated, reused, or inactivated as needed, starting the cycle again. Position funding is ongoing. Funding can be associated with or updated for a position throughout the life cycle, whether it is filled or vacant. Because position data impacts payroll, benefits, and reporting, understanding how each stage connects helps avoid downstream issues like funding errors and ensures more accurate system data. Depending on your role, you may be responsible for just one stage or even the entire life cycle. Most departments only have access to vacant position management and position funding. Check with your units about what aspects of the position lifecycle you are responsible for. This course will only focus on the first stage of the position lifecycle, vacant position management. But many units that are responsible for vacant position management are also responsible for funding the position. Funding is tied to a specific position number and department pair for a given fiscal year and must be added in UCPath after the position is created. If funding is not added to the position number department pair and the employee is hired into that position and paid, a suspense fund will be charged. While this ensures the employee is paid, the suspense fund will need to be reimbursed and the correct funding source will need to be charged. That could mean several additional transactions must be submitted in UCPath to ensure the position is properly funded, both historically and moving forward. Best practice: before filling a position, review the position's funding and make sure it is accurate and up to date. If it isn't, update the funding prior to filling the position. Since the funding is associated with the position number and department rather than the individual employee, it remains in place when the employee leaves and a new incumbent is hired into the same position. However, the funding allocation may require adjustments to align with the new incumbent's specific funding sources or compensation structure. Position data. Position data flows throughout UCPath. Therefore, it is so important that we take extra care to ensure our position data is accurate when we are creating new and updating vacant positions. There are many position attributes, including job code, reports to, department, location, full-time equivalency, FTE, FLSA status, headcount, and so much more. Let's take a look at a couple of these attributes in closer detail. Reports to. The Reports to field specifies the position that this position reports to, Or put another way, the reports to contains the position number occupied by the supervisor of an employee in this position. The relationship created between positions because of this field essentially creates an org chart of the entire UC system. Reports to data feeds into other downstream systems, such as CalTime for timekeeping, and other HR and payroll systems for approvals and reporting. Headcount. Each position has a certain headcount number that specifies how many employees may be added to that position. When vacant, the position has a headcount of 0. When filled, most positions have a headcount of 1. This is referred to as a single headcount position, which is a type of position that is intended to be filled by one individual at a time. Single headcount positions are required for all represented positions. In rare circumstances, multiple headcount positions are created, meaning many employees occupy the same position. While multiple headcount positions are possible to create within UCPath, there are many caveats to using them. Every employee must share all the same position information or attributes. That means that for every employee occupying that position, they must have the same job code, supervisor, FTE, department, location, FLSA status, etc. They cannot be used for represented positions, and they cannot be used for supervisor or manager positions. Very few people have the role position administrator in UCPath that allows them to update position data for filled multi-headcount positions. Additionally, auditing is critical before making position changes. If not audited properly, employee job records could be updated inadvertently with incorrect information, which can impact things like pay and benefits. Best practice at UC Berkeley: use single headcount positions and transfer employees currently in multi-headcount positions to single headcount positions. If a position has more employees hired into it than the headcount number, this is known as over-allocation. Over-allocated positions share the same caveats as multi-headcount positions, and additionally can have negative downstream consequences, including impacts to employee job data for all employees in the over-allocated position, which may affect pay and benefits. If the position is a supervisor position, there may be impacts to CalTime, UC Learning Center, and Achieve Together, because downstream systems aren't designed to have one employee reporting to 2 or more supervisors. Best practice at UC Berkeley: don't over-allocate positions. Now that you know more about positions, let's focus on one stage in the position lifecycle: vacant position management.